Redefining justice through radical thought. Historically, provocative ideas have emerged when dominant narratives fail to address systemic inequities. Thinkers like W.E.B. Du Bois and Angela Davis challenged colonial legacies and racial hierarchies long before mainstream discourse acknowledged them. Du Bois' concept of double consciousness laid bare the psychological toll of racism, while Davis redefined liberation struggles by linking them to global anti-imperialism. Their work forced society to confront uncomfortable truths. Reimagining legal systems. Proposals for restorative justice over punitive measures have gained traction, emphasizing healing over incarceration. Economic redistribution. Advocates argue for wealth taxes and universal basic income as solutions to inequality, disrupting capitalist frameworks. The power of questioning norms. Society thrives on unexamined assumptions, yet provocative thinkers dismantle these foundations daily. Consider how LGBTQ+ activists reframed sexuality from deviance to identity, challenging centuries-old moral codes. This shift wasn't immediate. It took decades of protest, legal battles, and cultural resistance. Yet today, marriage equality and gender-neutral policies reflect this transformative idea. Statistics and progress data reveal significant strides since the Stonewall riots of 1969. As of 2023, over 30 countries legally recognize same-sex unions, up from fewer than 5 in the early 2000s. Transgender rights advocacy has similarly expanded access to healthcare and legal protections. However, backlash persists. Over 80% of U.S. states now have laws restricting transgender youth sports participation, illustrating ongoing ideological conflict. Breaking economic myths. Economic provocations often target capitalism itself, exposing its human cost. Marx's critique of alienation remains relevant as automation displaces workers at unprecedented rates. New economic models propose alternatives. Cooperatives prioritize worker ownership, while carbon pricing mechanisms attempt to reconcile growth with ecological limits. Both challenge traditional profit motives. Educating against inequality. Education systems worldwide have been sites of ideological battle. Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed rejected passive learning, instead advocating critical consciousness among marginalized groups. This approach influenced literacy programs in Brazil and South Africa, transforming education into a tool of empowerment rather than control. Teachers became facilitators of revolution, not merely knowledge transmitters. Critical thinking curriculum. Schools incorporating discussions on media bias and historical revisionism prepare students for democratic engagement. Decolonizing textbooks. Replacing Eurocentric narratives with indigenous perspectives fosters inclusive national identities. Environmental awakening and climate action. No issue embodies contemporary provocation better than the climate crisis. Greta Thunberg's school strikes exposed government's complacency toward planetary destruction. Her blunt demand, "Our house is on fire," shifted environmental activism from niche interest group activity to global phenomenon. Over 15 million people participated in her first strike alone. Fossil fuel divestment. Universities and pension funds divesting from oil companies signal financial ethics aligning with ecological responsibility. Youth-led movements. Organizations like Fridays for Future leverage digital platforms to mobilize cross-border solidarity. The science behind the urgency. Scientific consensus warns of irreversible tipping points if warming exceeds 1.5 degrees Celsius. Current projections show temperatures could rise by 2.7 degrees Celsius by 2100 without drastic intervention. Methane emissions from melting permafrost and deforestation represent feedback loops accelerating disaster. These realities make incremental policy changes insufficient. Gender revolution and its discontents. The feminist movement has continually pushed boundaries, from suffrage to reproductive rights. Third-wave feminism introduced intersectionality, a framework recognizing overlapping oppressions. Kimberly Crenshaw's theory reshaped activism by highlighting how race, class, and gender intersect. This perspective prevents single-axis analyses that marginalize some voices. Pay equity campaigns. Pressure on corporations to publish wage gaps exposes persistent disparities affecting women of color most acutely. Menstrual equity. Global efforts to provide free period products combat stigma while addressing public health concerns. Technological provocations and ethical boundaries. Advancements in AI, biotechnology, and surveillance present ethical dilemmas demanding new ideologies. Facial recognition technology, for instance, disproportionately targets communities of color. Activists advocate for moratoriums on certain technologies until equitable safeguards exist. They ask fundamental questions: who controls innovation? How do we prevent harm? Data privacy laws. Regulations like GDPR set precedents for protecting personal information against corporate exploitation. AI ethics committees. Tech firms establishing oversight bodies signals growing awareness of algorithmic bias risks. Religious dissent and spiritual liberation. Religion has both upheld oppression and inspired revolutions. Liberation theology in Latin America, for example, framed faith as a weapon against poverty and injustice. Priests like Oscar Romero linked Vatican teachings to grassroots organizing, showing religion's capacity for radical reinterpretation. His assassination galvanized international support for reform. Interfaith coalitions. Collaborations between Muslim, Christian, and Buddhist leaders strengthen movements against hate crimes and xenophobia. Secular humanism promotes ethical living independent of dogma, appealing to those seeking spirituality beyond organized religion. The art of resistance. Creative expression serves as powerful political commentary. Banksy's street art critiques war, consumerism, and immigration policies globally. Murals depicting police brutality have become rallying symbols. Literature too plays pivotal roles, from Orwell's dystopian visions warning against totalitarianism to Haruki Murakami's allegories exploring post-war trauma. Books remain tools of dissent. Music as protest. Songs like Bob Marley's War or Beyoncé's Formation amplify messages of resistance through mass appeal. Performance art. Marina Abramovic's endurance pieces force viewers to confront discomfort, mirroring activist demands for attention. Future frontiers of provocation. Emerging issues demand fresh ideological approaches. Space colonization raises questions about extraterrestrial governance and resource equity. Should Mars be terraformed or left untouched? Biotech advancements like CRISPR editing prompt debates on genetic modification ethics. Will enhancements create new forms of social stratification akin to eugenics? Universal basic income trials. Pilot programs in Finland and Canada test viability of automated economies replacing traditional labor structures. Climate migration policies. Developing frameworks to protect displaced populations due to rising sea levels and desertification. Conclusion. From civil rights marches to digital age protests, provocative ideas shape history by confronting injustices others ignore. They require courage, persistence, and willingness to disrupt comfort zones. Engage critically with new ideas, participate actively in dialogues, and remember, every revolutionary thought began as something deemed too dangerous to discuss openly.